another week. It's good. So we're fifth week of six. It's a six-part introductory course to Buddhism, Dharma or the Dhamma, as we say it. So tonight should be interesting. I hope you find it interesting. We're going to practice with the so-called Brahma Viharas. These are the practices of friendliness and compassion and sympathetic joy, being happy when others are happy, and equanimity. So we're not going to have time, obviously, for everything, but we're going to concentrate on compassion tonight, and actually self-compassion. I thought it might be helpful to summarize what we've done the first 4 weeks. So, some of you have been here all 4 weeks, I recognize you. Anyways, first week was mindfulness. It's the basic teaching of the Buddha, whatever tradition, Tibetan, Zen, Chinese, Vipassana, Theravada tradition. Mindfulness is the key to the teaching of the Buddha. That's where insight arises, or awakening arises from insight. So what is our definition of mindfulness? Everyone knows what it is, right? But how can we define it? What is mindfulness?
Knowing your present moment, knowing yourself in the present moment.
Knowing yourself
In the present moment.
Knowing yourself, yeah. Knowing what, just knowing is good enough. Or knowing your experience in the present moment. Good. That's all it is. So when I'm talking, I can feel the body, feel the air coming through here. I can feel my feet on the ground. When you're listening, you can be mindful of the body, but also mindful of what you're hearing. Simple mindfulness. Second week, we worked with the Four Noble Truths, key teaching of the Buddha. Whatever tradition, doesn't matter. Four Noble Truths said to be the most important, really the transformational teaching of the Buddha. First noble truth is the truth of suffering. That suffering is a part of life. Birth is suffering, old age, sickness, and death. Being with whom we don't want to be with, and not being with whom we want to be with. Those are some examples Buddha gave. That's the first noble truth. The second noble truth is how we create this extra layer, this really big extra layer of suffering. And what we do is when an experience is unpleasant, we push it away. That's called aversion. When an experience is pleasant, we reach out, we take hold of it, we grasp it. This produces suffering. Third noble truth is the end of suffering, or said the cessation of suffering. So instead of going like this with a heart and mind, or like this to this unpleasant, this pleasant, we go like this. Acceptance, letting things be, letting go. Also compassion, self-compassion, acceptance. That's the key. We think we can monitor our lives, and we can make things better if we're constantly going like this. But it actually destroys the balance of our heart and mind. So the Buddha is an amazing insight the Buddha had. Fourth noble truth is simply the path to the end of suffering, sometimes called the Noble Eightfold Path. Third week, we practice with the three characteristics. So the first one I just got through saying is suffering, or dukkha. Second is impermanence, that everything in life is impermanent. You notice that? Third is not self, that wherever we look for a fixed self, we can't find it. Can't find it in the body, which is changing all the time. Can't find it in our thoughts, which are changing all the time. Emotions, etc. The third of the characteristics is this not self, which means that we can't find our permanent self anywhere. And this is maybe the most profound insight the Buddha had. It leads to freedom or awakening, which is the Buddhist path. Last week, we practiced with difficult body sensations, pain, a lot of restlessness. And we work with techniques, meditation techniques that can allow us to meet the pain in the body and the unsatisfactoriness in our body. We all have that, if things are, if you're feeling good right now, just wait, a week, a month, a year from now, something's gonna happen. So what we don't wanna do, we have a pain in the leg, is to push it away. Of course, that's what we'll do until we retrain our minds. This is the way we've learned by growing up, right? It's to avoid pain and seek pleasure. It actually doesn't work all that well. So being mindful shows us there's another path. This is the path, acceptance. And also, last week we worked with difficult emotions or mind states. Difficult emotions, fear, anxiety, rage, loneliness, sadness, grief, etc. And again, mindfulness. I gave you a bunch of techniques, and one of them is the acronym RAIN, recognition. So let's suppose fear comes up. So we know it's fear, simple mindfulness. Acceptance is not trying to struggle with the fear, not trying to get rid of it. Instead, just opening to it, knowing that the fear is there. That's RA, recognition, acceptance. I is investigation. What that means is to be curious, be interested in what is happening in the heart and mind. And so you got thoughts going on, you have emotions going on. Sometimes the emotion will change. And then also what's happening in the body. Really strong emotional experiences are manifested in the body, right? You probably have experienced that yourself. So that's the review. Now tonight we're going to talk, first of all, any questions about what we've covered the last 4 weeks? Okay, good. So tonight we're going to talk about and practice with the so-called Brahma Viharas. Brahma is heavenly or high-ranking. Vihara is a abiding or a place where something is manifested. So these are like heavenly, it's not a perfect definition, but it's kind of really important, high-standing practices. And again, I mentioned you have loving kindness. That's the first one, or metta. That's not about romantic love as much as it is about friendliness. Just we can extend metta wishes to everyone. People that we like, that's pretty easy. People that we don't like, that's pretty difficult. But as we practice, we move from sending metta to friends, to people that have been there for us, for our lives. And we kind of move down the chain. We move to neutral, and we move to difficult, and eventually to all beings. So this is a really profound way of opening the heart. So tonight we're going to work with the second Brahma Vihara, compassion or karuna. And specifically, I'm going to instruct and lead you on meditations regarding self-compassion, which is really important. We, a lot of us have a lot of judgment in our hearts and mind. You know about this, right? Just can't accept who we are. And self-compassion allows us to be present for our own suffering, to really open to it, to be intimate with our own suffering, which leads to self-acceptance, self-love. And we can also extend compassion to others. Again, easy, friends, family, neutral people, neutral animals, difficult people, and then we move to all beings. And I'll explain how this works in a minute. The third one is actually a lot of fun. It's one I practiced a lot. It's called sympathetic joy, or mudita, M-U-D-I-T-A. This is probably the one I've done the most. I've done a lot of compassion and mudita. So compassion is being present for suffering, our own suffering, the suffering of others. Whereas mudita is being present for our own happiness and the happiness of others. And like the Dalai Lama has said, if we can be happy when others are happy, just referring to humans alone, we'd be happy. He said 6 billion times. It was about 30 years ago he said this. It's actually over 7 billion humans, I think, in the world. So, I mean, just think about it. If we actually can be happy when others are happy, think of all the happiness that we can experience. And then the final Brahma Vihara is called Upekkha, or equanimity. This balances everything. So you've got wishes of loving kindness, friendliness. You've got compassion, being present for suffering, our own suffering, suffering of others. You have mudita, being present for happiness, our own happiness, and happiness of others. They're kind of like the other sides of the coin, present for suffering, present for happiness. And then there's upekkha that kind of balances everything out. So it's not getting carried away with our experiences. It's a balanced heart and a balanced mind. We still are feeling happy, sad, other emotions in between, but we don't get carried away with that. There's a balance, a sense of not being subject to the whims and the winds of our experiences. And it's actually quite nice. And some people will say this is the core of practice, is equanimity. So, any questions about where we're going to go tonight? We're going to do compassion, especially self-compassion. Okay with everybody? So we had a practice, our homework assignment, which was to practice mindfulness of pain or unpleasantness in the body, and also to practice being mindful of difficult emotions. So I named a few. I have a list of 30 that I practiced with, that I've experienced in my life. So time for a check-in on the homework assignment. Did anybody practice mindfulness with the body, pain in the body? Let's see if you,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have, I often have pain in the neck, and so I did do that, and it was interesting. I could pinpoint more exactly where it hurt, and I kind of did writing with it, and it tended to go away.
so the comment was, I'll repeat some questions, comments, mostly comments now, just to check in, but I won't be able to do all of them, just time doesn't permit. So for those of you listening on Zoom, so that she was practicing mindfulness with a pain, discomfort in the back of the neck, and just was trying to be mindful of that. And after a period of time, the pain actually decreased a lot and went away. All right, so I mentioned this last week. This is really important. So if we do these practices specifically, one specific example is being present for pain in the body. And if we do it with the intention to try to get rid of the pain, it actually doesn't work. You can try it yourself. But of course, this is what we'll do again and again and again, because this is the way we've learned. Right? We learn to live our lives. So we got to have a pain, we want to get rid of the pain. Instead, you used the word, I think you said, did you say interest or curious about it? It was interesting, you said. It was interesting.
Yeah.
That's where to hang out, with interest. That's really what it's not. So it's not trying to get rid of the pain. It's, wow, look at what this is. What is this? Is it vibration? Is it stabbing sensation? It's more than pain. It's just a concept. Is it hot, cold, medium? Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? So to be curious about what it is we're experiencing is really a tremendous support. Anybody else? Yeah.
I noticed, I also had a neck pain, and I noticed that the meditation itself was really irritating to just sit. in a posture that didn't feel good for my neck. And so I decided to move and lay down and put one hand on my neck and then try the meditation again. And then I really felt like that pain was able to receive compassion
Beautiful.
just with a little bit of touch.
Okay, so I do want to repeat this. So again, another person with pain in the neck, motioning back here. And it was really uncomfortable just to sit in a sitting posture. And so we tried reclining or lying meditation, which I'll say a few words about in a minute. And that was, it helped a lot. And we were able to stay with the sensations. And eventually, so again, we're not doing it to get rid of the pain, but we did notice a change in the pain level. It's like go like this, more or less the same. Just watch that. I mean, can you get interested in the level of pain? So this is hard. When the pain is intense, this is not an easy thing to do. That's what mindfulness is. If you are meditating and you have discomfort in the body and it's really intense, what's probably happening is you're using up a lot of energy just to try to stay with the pain. By the way, there's a whole field has developed out of this called mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. People are trained in that. It was developed by John Kabat-Zinn, who actually is a very, very serious Buddhist practitioner, the Korean tradition. And so he developed this. He took the teachings of the Buddha and applied, without mentioning the Buddha's name, and applied to mindfulness and some of these techniques I'm teaching here. And it was at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston that started out. You can get it at Scripps here, probably at Sharp, a lot of other hospitals in San Diego. And so this is kind of a non-sectarian way, let's say, of working with these principles that the Buddha taught. Yeah. All right, good. Anyone else? How about difficult emotions? Do they come up when you're meditating or not? Anger, sadness, loneliness. When they come up when we're meditating, one time or another, everything's going to come up. We get our share of all of this stuff that we're talking about. And if it comes up when we're meditating, what's the first thing that we often think? Oh no, all I want to do is meditate, and now I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling jealous, or something else. But actually, it's a really good thing when it comes up when meditating, because now you're in a position and hopefully at least partly have a state of mind that is more supportive of connecting with that emotion or with the body pain. And so mindfulness actually can purify our difficulties, our unpleasant experiences. Okay, let's move into compassion. I want to say a few words and then we're going to start meditating. We'll probably do a couple short ones because I like to get feedback to see how you're taking in the teachings I'm going to give. So, with compassion, it's said to be the vibration of the heart in the light of suffering. So it's the heart reacts when we're not distracted. It reacts naturally to our own pain and suffering and to the pain and suffering of others. But we do all kinds of things to cover up this natural tendency of the heart. And the way we do these practices is that we take certain groupings, certain classifications. So I'll tell you the way it's done with compassion. So we start out with a person or an animal. So we do compassion and the other Brahma Viharas for what the Buddha called sentient beings, S-E-N-T-I-E-N-T, sentient, which means feeling. Sentient, you look it up in the dictionary, feeling. And more specifically, it means feeling pain. So animals as well as humans, of course, can feel pain. So if we have a favorite dog, or a favorite cat, or a favorite goat, or rabbit, whatever, we can absolutely do the compassion practice for an animal, or we can do it for human. It's up to you. You get to choose. And we start out with a being that is suffering. That's the instruction. It's easiest to be able to connect to the suffering of a being that we know to be suffering. So it could be someone that you know, some animal you know, or it could be a public figure that you don't know. The second classification for compassion practice is either a benefactor, which means someone, again, it could be a dog or cat, it could be a person that has been there for you, that you have a fairly simple relationship with, and it's positive. It may be a teacher, it may be a friend, it may be someone that has been there for you when you needed that person. The third category is self. So it's thought to be a little more difficult to send compassion to ourselves. In a lot of cultures, that's not true. So most Buddhists in the world live in Asia, 98.5%. My organization, Dharma Voices for Animals, spends a lot of time going to Asia in 2-3 weeks. And the countries I'm going to Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam, they're Buddhist countries. There doesn't seem, it's kind of hard to quantify this. There doesn't seem to be as much self-judgment in many of the Buddhist Asian cultures that I've been in. And so, like some people like Tibetans have trouble understanding the concept of self-hatred or self-judgment. And it has to do with the way children are brought up. But in our culture, it's really common. So many people are judging themselves so harshly, so meanly. If someone else judged us like we judged ourselves, we'd be really furious. But we do this. So we're going to spend some time with self-compassion. This is where we're going to start, maybe where we finish tonight. The fourth category would be neutral person. Someone we know just a little bit, maybe someone that takes a ticket or money at a parking lot, or somebody that busses a table in a restaurant we go to, or somebody that cleans our office. So we know them. Maybe we say hello to them. We don't know their name. We don't have either a positive or negative opinion about them. The next category is difficult. I'll say difficult person. It'd be difficult for an animal to fit into this category. Difficult person. So this is someone that has done us wrong. And it's advised that we don't take a 10. We don't take the person in the world that we have the most negative feelings about. Instead, we take like a 5. We kind of work it up. Like when you're lifting weights, you don't start out with 50 pounds. You might start out with 10 or 15. And you do it slowly. The final category, and this is true for all the Brahma Viharas, is all beings. So we send our compassion to all beings. So, you all ready to go? All right. Please find a comfortable position. So the most important thing is a cross-legged is great if you're on the mat. On the zafu, that's the cushion. Or zabuton is the mat. Or if you're sitting in a chair, all those positions are fine. Several suggestions is try to keep the back straight. So I have a comfortable chair. If I'm leaning back like this, I'm not very alert. Instead, I'm getting my back off the chair and I'm sitting straight. So the back is straight, but not rigid, if you can see what I'm doing. And then the head is looking and the eyes are looking straight ahead. I'm going to suggest you close your eyes unless you're accustomed to meditating with eyes open. And if your eyes were open, you'd be looking straight ahead. So you don't want to be looking down. You don't want to be looking up, to the right, to the left, but straight ahead. And allow the head to sit as comfortably as possible on the shoulders. Hands can go anywhere. I put my hands, palms down on my thighs. I can do it the other way, palms up. I can put one hand in the other, or one hand in the other, put it in my lap. I can fold my hands, whatever way is most comfortable. And I would say for this meditation, don't change your posture. Once you get into it, find as comfortable posture as possible. Even if it's slightly uncomfortable for you, try to stick with it. If there's pain, substantial pain, by all means change so that you're not suffering. But once you get into a posture, it's good. We're only going to have one or two short meditations. Okay, so find that position. I like to start off each meditation with remembering to know there is a body. This is the first instruction given by the Buddha in the Foundations of Mindfulness called the Satipatthana Sutta. Know there is a body. So for me, that means just feeling the body. You feel the butt on the chair, on the cushion, feel your feet on the floor or on a cushion or mat. Now, the way we do Brahma Vihara practice is by saying to ourselves a phrase or two or three phrases. The most common phrase for compassion is, I'm sending compassion to myself, may I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. So please repeat that to yourself in whatever pace you want. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering, or slower. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. So you're repeating that to yourself again and again. The mind will wander once, twice, 10 times, 20 times. When you realize the mind has wandered and you're no longer saying the phrase, it's okay. No need to judge yourself. Just come back and say the phrase again. Very simple. It's a simple wish. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. You say that to yourself. If you can, allow the attention or the mindfulness to rest in your heart center. It's right in the center of the chest cavity. It's kind of where the heart and lungs are, right in the middle there. Kind of, you can feel it. If you can't, it's okay. It's just enough to say the phrase, may I be free from suffering. If we're doing it for others, like a suffering person, we'd say, may you be free from suffering. We'd repeat that phrase again and again. May I be free from suffering. Notice the tone of the inner voice. Is it harsh? May I be free from suffering. Or is it soft? May I be free from suffering. So we want to find an inner tone that is compassionate, that is caring, that loving. But it's enough just to say the phrase. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. The Buddha said, I love this, that one could search the entire universe and find no one that is more deserving of our love and compassion than ourselves. The entire universe. It applies to everyone in this room. May I be free from suffering. If you've been lost in thought, don't even remember that you're meditating. Just come back. It's okay. This will happen again and again. You realize you've been lost in thought, that's a moment of mindfulness, and just come back to the phrase, may I be free from suffering. No one more deserving than yourself. So Brahma-vihara practice, especially compassion, is said to open the heart. Also, it's a concentration practice. If we do this enough, the mind and body will become concentrated. When concentrated, insights come much more easily. And insights change our habits and eventually lead to freedom. And also purification. When we're doing this practice, and you're not doing it wrong if you're filled with hatred or anger or disappointment or frustration. Instead, when these other emotions come up while we're doing one of the Brahma Viharas, such as compassion, those feelings and emotions tend to be purified by the practice. May I be free from suffering. I'm going to give you another phrase. So this is the classical phrase. It's been used and taught since the time of the Buddha, about 2,600 years ago. The phrase that I now use when doing compassion practice for myself is, may I hold this suffering with compassion. May I hold the suffering with compassion. So if you like, may I be free from suffering, or if you like, may I hold this suffering with compassion. Pick one of the two phrases and continue saying them to yourself as we practice compassion for self or self-compassion. May I be free from suffering. You might feel compassion. You might feel the opposite. You might feel hatred or anger or impatience. And it's okay. Whatever the experience you're having is okay. Just continue to say the phrase. This is the way the heart and mind become purified. May I hold this suffering with compassion, or may I be free from suffering. We try to do this practice, although sometimes it's difficult, without expectation. It's just enough to incline the heart and mind towards compassion. The Dharma will take care of itself. Sometimes you'll feel compassionate, sometimes you'll feel happy, sometimes you'll feel the opposite. Whatever you're feeling, this is a powerful practice. I know I've been doing it for many years. This is practiced all around the world. Temples, on retreats. May I be free from suffering, or may I hold this suffering with compassion. I'm going to give you one further alternative. I've been doing this for a while, probably the last 5 or 6 years, and that is, instead of the word suffering, I substitute a specific emotion or mind state. It's difficult or painful. For example, may I hold this anxiety with compassion. May I hold this fear with compassion? May I hold this anger with compassion? May I hold this rage with compassion? May I hold this judgment with compassion? May I hold this self-judgment with compassion? May I hold this sadness with compassion? May I hold this grief with compassion? May I hold this loneliness with compassion? May I hold this restlessness with compassion? So you're welcome to try different ways of practicing self-compassion. If you're experiencing a strong, unpleasant emotion, difficult, problematic emotion, then you could put that into the meditation. Maybe it's jealousy. May I hold this jealousy with compassion? May I hold this overwhelmingness with compassion? Or as I do, I go through this. I have a list now of 30 different challenging emotions and mind states. And unless I'm really experiencing something in large quantities and really painful, I just go through the list. I may say each one 3, 4, 5 times. It allows me to become more intimate with these emotions. So time for check-in. I'm very interested in what you're experiencing. So anybody, everybody, was that easy? Was it difficult? Have you done this before? The first time? Self-compassion. Okay? Be able to stay with the phrase? Did mind wander a lot? No. Sometimes you sit and then and then the bell rings. You go, whoa, was I meditating? Something happens. It doesn't matter how long you've been meditating. So that's not a problem with the meditation. It's just what happens. It's all based on karma, causes and conditions. And we've been conditioning our hearts and minds to be to not pay attention. So it's not a surprise when we sit quietly that we're not paying attention. But we retrain the mind. So, yeah, please.
The second phrase felt a lot more compassionate to me.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what's happening that's negative, that's painful for me is grief. And to say, may I be free from that, sounds false. So to say, may I hold this with compassion feels a lot more true and easier to stay with.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. I don't know what it was. I was on a retreat. I was doing 2 weeks of compassion practice, and I just came upon this. And my teacher supported it. There was, oh yeah, this is a good way to do it too. And so the comment was that, so with, for example, grief, may I be free from grief. It doesn't really resonate, doesn't sound authentic, but may I hold this grief with compassion feels more authentic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got it. You know, it may, someday that may change, but for now, just go with it. You don't even have to fool around with, may I be free from. Yeah. And usually the instruction on may I be free from suffering is not to substitute specific emotions. I just did that, and other people are doing it with may I hold this, and I put in a specific emotion, may I hold this doubt with compassion. So, but if you found that, there's no reason to change. Just hang out with that. And self-compassion, if this resonates with you, do a lot of self-compassion meditation. It's wonderful. I've been teaching for 18, 19 years now. I've been practicing for almost 30 years. And I used to have 2 sockets, now I have 1. So when COVID started here, it was in March, pretty much when things shut down of 2020. So my sagas we combined that and went on Zoom. And what we did for, I'd say 4 months, every single week, self-compassion. And it seemed everyone was getting into it because it was a really difficult time. So you cannot do too much self-compassion. You don't have to stop, just keep doing it. And there's a lot of meditation. I also, of course, have been teaching mindfulness meditation or Vipassana insight meditation. So you can combine the two. There's so many ways you can practice. Practice assignment's going to be sit or meditate at least 4 times during the week, between now and next week, and do self-compassion, at least some self-compassion during each of the meditations. So if you meditate for 5 minutes, maybe that's all you do. If you meditate for a half hour or 40 minutes, you can do self-compassion the entire time, or you can do compassion, self-compassion, and then mindfulness meditation. One of the other techniques that I've shared with you. Who else? Anybody else with?
So I find, so something moved me to tears, like when you said the phrase, you said the Buddha said this, that of all the beings in the universe, none is more deserving of compassion than you. That makes me cry. And the other thing is when you say focus on the heart center, sometimes I have tears come up. So this can be very moving, I find.
They're beautiful. So that's it. And you're experiencing compassion. The comment was sometimes tears come when fully connected with the compassion practice, and then just commenting that the Buddha's, we could search the entire universe and find no one more deserving of our love and compassion than ourselves. I mean, that's wonderful. It's so I mean, this could be the entire spiritual path for any of us, right? To love and acceptance, and that's the entire practice. That's the entire path. So good, yeah, good. So you're experiencing what we're doing. You're having compassion for self while you're doing compassion. Now, some of you might think, I wish that happened to me. I didn't notice anything like that. Just keep doing the practice. If you're learning to play the saxophone, you're not going to pick up the saxophone for the first time and start hitting some good notes. It's not going to happen. If you're learning to play basketball, you're learning a second or third language. You can't just start at the top. You have to work your way up. You have to practice. Well, this is no different. The habits of the mind and heart are so strong that it really takes a lot of practice, but it's worth it. And the more time we spend mindful, the more intimate our life and our experiences will be. The same thing with the Brahma Viharas. The more self-compassion we do, the happier we'll be, the more peaceful we'll be, the more intimate we'll be with our lives, and be there for others, and enjoy and experience life in a real way. So this is just win-win. If you like self-compassion practice, keep doing it. If you don't, if it's difficult for a lot of Americans to do that. A lot of us in this room, it's difficult to do it because with all these other things, our society and advertising tries to convince us there's something wrong with us, right? We have too much or too little of something. And that's the culture. It's not true in a lot of places in the world. This is our culture here. So we really have to like reprogram heart and mind. This is the way to do it. Just practice self-compassion. And if you're gonna sit for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, just to do a little, you can do the entire sit or the entire meditation on self-compassion. Or what you can do is just do 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning, and then do mindfulness meditation after that. Anybody else check in or questions? Sure.
Many years ago, I had a Hindu teacher who said that he had the perfect mantra for Americans. Not enough, not enough, too much, not enough, too much. You do that for a while, stuff comes up.
Yeah, so this reminds me, so the comment was, a teacher some time ago was, the mantra was not enough, too much, not enough, too much. So I like that a lot. So it was maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago and 1 week ago, we were talking about feeling tone. So with every experience we have in the mind and in the body, there is a so-called feeling tone that applies. So it's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This is really important because when something is pleasant, what do? We reach out, we take it in, and we hold on to it. When it's unpleasant, we let go of it, we push it away, we keep it at bay. So this is the movement of the heart and mind. So a lot of times when I'm stuck and I'm just, things are not going well, I try just to notice the feeling tone. So much of the time when I'm not doing so well, it's unpleasant. So you don't have to really you don't have to figure out what's going on, just know it's unpleasant. Just know that your experience is unpleasant again and again and again. Good. Anyone else? We're going to do another meditation. Yeah, please.
So I used to practice the self-compassion meditation a long time ago, and I think the phrases were, may I be loving, may I be kind, something like that. It's been years.
So that is, I'm glad you asked that question. So the metta, we have an hour together to cover, years of practice, right? I've been doing these Brahma Viharas. I've sat 27 retreats for a month or longer, and usually spend half of each of those retreats. If it's a month, I spend 2 weeks doing nothing but one of the Brahma Viharas. But we just have a short time together. So you're describing what we would say is a metta. So that's the friendliness. The phrases, the 4 classical phrases for metta are, so if you're doing it for someone else, may you be healthy, may you be peaceful, may you be safe, may you be happy. There's different variations of it. It's very similar to what we're doing now, which is compassion. The difference is, may you be healthy, peaceful, safe, and happy, is just, or may I be, it's just wishing well. The compassion is actually trying to connect directly with the suffering. But they are very similar, and there's a lot of overlap between the two. And you do metta, you can't go wrong, and do it for self. May I be healthy, may I be peaceful, may I be safe, may I be happy. And I like to add the phrase, may I love and accept myself just as I am. That's the kind of a cross combination of compassion and loving kindness. So good. So either one you do, yeah, go ahead.
So what I was trying to say was, when you say, may I be free from suffering, you're kind of adding, depends on whether you see suffering as a negative word or not, because we all suffer. Part of being human is suffering unless you can fight
Right.
it. So is it better to have a phrase without any negative word like suffering? Say like, oh, may I be happy or may I be.
Yeah, so again, that's the difference between, on the one hand, may I be free from suffering is compassion, and may I be healthy, peaceful, safe, and happy is the metta. So they're very closely related, there's a lot of overlap, and it really doesn't matter which one you do. But as you do more of this, it sounds like you've been practicing for a while, it's really good to see the variations. And then, we learn from it to see where compassion begins and ends, and where metta begins and ends also. And when I add the phrase, may I love and accept myself just as I am, it's getting into the compassion realm also. Good, all right, good, thank you for that.
Can I ask one?
Of course, yeah,
Just real quickly, you kind of alluded to this, so if you're meditating not just for 5 minutes, but for longer, is it okay to combine different things?
Yeah.
Like you do some, compassion, some, the rain or mindfulness?
yes, so, yeah, the question is, and this is a question that has, that often has come up in my practice. So, how do you combine, is it okay to combine compassion practice with mindfulness practice? And the answer is yes. Now, some teachers will instruct you on compassion and want you to just do compassion for a certain amount of time. And others will instruct just on mindfulness. But when you're doing it yourself, absolutely it's okay. And it's, sometimes we practice concentration practices. And a really good way to start that off is to do either metta or karuna or compassion. And so it's up to you. It's kind of like your painting. You can use whatever colors you want. And if you're doing it for concentration, we're just not going to have time to talk about concentration. It's a really important part of the practice. Concentration comes from continuous mindfulness. Mindfulness moment, mindfulness moment, mindfulness moment, mindfulness moment, whatever the object is of the mindfulness, that leads to concentration. So we're all wired differently. We all have different karma, different causes and conditions. Some of us are prone to concentration, others aren't. But when you're doing it for concentration, you want to stick with the same practice. So you can do the Brahma Viharas, you can do compassion, metta, mudita, or upekkha for concentration. Just continue to say the phrase. But nothing will happen in a half hour, 40 minutes, but you do over a period of time. Yeah, so good. Thanks for the question, which I don't have time to repeat. I would like to do another short meditation with you, if it's okay, and then we'll conclude for the night. So please find a comfortable position again, wherever that is. And I'd like you to take one moment to think of someone that you know. Could be someone you personally know, it could be a public figure, again, it could be an animal or a human, somebody, some being that you know, but they're suffering, you know that they're suffering. Maybe they just fell and broke a bone, maybe they're experiencing grief, in some way they're suffering. Just take a moment. And we're going to send compassion wishes to that being. Very simply, may you be free from suffering. So if you can hold a image, a visual image or some image in your mind of the suffering being, that's great. Allow the mindfulness to rest in the heart center. Very simply, may you be free from suffering. May you be free from suffering. We're not trying to get a result. We're not trying to fix the other person or the animal. Just may you be free from suffering. A simple wish. So we have time for one check-in.
All right.
Whoa. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
It's okay. Time for one check-in, anybody? So that's an example of another class of beings that we can send compassion to. So I have Stephen, did you leave?
Yes.
Did you leave?
Yeah, I did.
Great, so I think it's back there. Yeah, it's on the bench there, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have what I call my cheat sheet of Brahma Vihara phrases. It's broken down into loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So please take one. There are many variations to each of these, but I leave you some examples. Practice assignment again is to practice self-compassion. And next week,
I just have one question.
Sure.
We've been unable to bring up your first teaching,
Yes.
mindfulness. Could you just quickly, the mindfulness meditation, and just do the reminder again?
So I gave you the first part of that when you first said, no, there is a body. So just feel the body in the sitting posture. And then I opened to sounds. Don't have to do anything, just notice the sounds. And then the breath. The two instructions, notice the in-breath and out-breath. Notice if the in-breath is short or long, and do the same with the out-breath. So those are a few instructions. And maybe we'll have time. So next week, we're going to work with the ethical foundation of the Dharma of Buddhism. And it's very important. It's hard to meditate when we're doing like all kinds of bad stuff in the world, right? So we'll talk about that, and maybe we'll have time for some meditation. Thank you for the question. And I think I'm going to stop now and allow Stephen to. Thank you all for coming. Hope to see you next week. Thanks, Stephen.
Are we
Good, man. You're good. Thank you.
Oh, first time doing this. Hello, everyone. Tonight's name is Stephen. We opened the Dharma Club Temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretations of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for everyone with addiction.